Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your Jedi Knight Luke here with
The Captain Henson.
And finally, we are continuing the SOSW reviews for Bad Batch Season 3. We're sorry it's taken this long, but we've had all sorts of technical difficulties. The 3 episodes we're discussing today are episodes 4, 5, and 6 of Season 3, so we'll be starting with the first of those 3, which is A Different Approach. This episode picks up immediately after Shadows of Tantus. In hyperspace, Omega and Crosshair are scurrying to keep their ship working as it sustained heavy damage. They crash land on an unknown planet and head for a spaceport several clicks east. Back on Tantus, Dr. Hemlock interrogates Nala Se about Omega's blood tests and tells Nala that her future is uncertain. On the unidentified planet, Omega and Crosshair disguise themselves to avoid attention from the Imperial patrol. Omega convinces the airline assistant, who initially asked for Imperial chain codes, to take a bribe so they could board a shuttle. The assistant expects a total of 15,000 credits per ticket, so that's 30,000 credits in total, and Omega challenges someone to several card games of balance and wins all of them in a nearby club. Well, thus far anyway. Imperials end up joining the fray, and an officer challenges Omega to a game. Just as it looks like all hope is lost, Omega pulls the winning move, the 3 Eastern Stars. She ends up pocketing an extra 20,000 credits, though they end up losing 10,000 due to a gambling fine that the Imperial officer enforced. Batcher was kidnapped by the Imperials, and Omega and Crosshair fight them off and free her. The heroes commandeer a ship and escape. Back at the crash site, Hemlock tells the commandos to inform all Imperial operatives of Omega and Crosshair's whereabouts. Crosshair and Omega reunite with Hunter and Wrecker on a remote location, and Crosshair is greeted by a stern gaze from his brothers, thus ending the episode.
So, I don't have a lot to say on this episode. It was nice to see Omega and Crosshair's relationship develop more. And I did like the fact that neither one of them was entirely always correct. Both made decisions that, could turn out good, could go sideways real fast. And really, this was just a means of showing us how our big bad is able to finally, better pinpoint where Omega is. And finally, seeing Crosshairs reunite with the rest of the Bad Batch. Be interesting to see where that goes. That's really it for me.
I really enjoyed this episode personally. Finally, we see Crosshair and Omega working together not only as squad mates but as siblings instead of butting heads just for the sake of it all the darn time. We also see Omega becoming much more of a risk taker, such as when she plays the games of balance and manages to win them all, which is great to see. And in terms of how the episode ends with Crosshair and Omega reuniting with Hunter and Wrecker, that was a very interesting scene, even though it came right at the end. And of course, the hostility is there, and as to how this pans out in future episodes, well, we may as well segue into the next one. So moving on to episode 5, The Return. This episode begins with Omega waking up on the Marauder, and all of her big brothers give her a warm greeting. Crosshair is practicing his sharpshooting and is having stability issues with his left hand. The result is relayed in AZ's figure that Crosshair's sharpshooter accuracy was that of 53%. Obviously, that's a much lower achievement than we're used to from Crosshair. Echo returns, and Omega and Crosshair relay what they can to the brothers. Wrecker gives Crosshair his old armor, and the team set off for a remote facility. Its sole protection, as it turns out, are a set of perimeter beacons. They head inside a depot and power it up. Echo commences a data transfer from the data pad they have, and Hunter and Crosshair finally talk about Crosshair's change of heart. They almost come to blows when a snow worm reveals itself. The ground gives way and Hunter falls deep below. Hunter races through the tunnel. Omega and Hunter restore the perimeter beacon's power, and the team lure the snow worm beyond the perimeter. Echo tells Omega, thanks to the data transfer, they're one step closer to freeing the clones. Finally, Hunter and Crosshair take their first step to reconciliation. Crosshair admits that he regrets what he did as part of the Empire. Hunter accepts he has regrets of his own, and that all they can do now is try to do better. There just might be hope for them yet. Crosshair takes one final look at a bird flying over them, and the team leave the planet, ending the episode.
So it was nice going back to the planet in which Crosshair killed that asshole and seeing the start of his shaking hand. And so I'm glad that we weren't wasting time with this. We immediately got into it. These characters are going to just deal with this now instead of, dragging it out for as long as possible. That would have been a huge fucking mistake. And I thought the snow worm made for an interesting threat. And I said this in regards to the dynamic between Crosshairs and Hunter. It did take us a while to finally get to this point. But, it wasn't too bad. And this gave us an opportunity to develop these character relationships more, especially with everything that's happened.
I really enjoyed this episode. Finally seeing that hostility turned to reconciliation between Hunter and Crosshair. If this is in fact the same snow planet that we saw in The Outpost, one of the latter season 2 episodes, then it's interesting to visit there again. The snow worm, I'm going to be honest, I immediately got Blengiel sandworm vibes. If you've played Jedi Knight Jedi Academy, you know what I'm talking about.
Have you
So I
ever seen
think,
the movie Tremors?
oh, Star Wars probably got the influence from that then.
I mean, sandworms come from dunes, so
Hmm.
continue.
Either way, that's immediately what I thought of Jedi Academy when I saw the snow worm. But seeing the team work together to get it back beyond the perimeter was great, and to see the old team, well, as close as we can get to becoming a team again, is really good, I think. Okay, shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay, episode 6, Infiltration. This episode begins with our old favourite, Captain Rex, and fellow clones escorting Senator Singh, the former Prime Minister of Raxus, to Senator Ryo Chuchi. Despite their past on opposite sides during the Clone Wars, the senators discuss the possibility of an alliance. The assassin, who was watching the heroes earlier on, tries to escape, yet Hauser stuns him and sees he is another clone beneath the mask. The heroes take the assassin back to base and try to reason with him. Back on Tantis, Scorch tells another Shadow Trooper to neutralize the one Rex's team captured. Speaking of the Shadow Trooper captured by Rex and Co., one of Rex's fellow clones found out that Senator Singh and Omega were targets on the Shadow Clone's data puck. Rex tells his team to contact the Bad Batch. The two teams unite and Echo gives Omega a new energy crossbow before he departs. The new Shadow Clone has tracked down the heroes, and Omega lets the team know about the blood samples being taken on Tantis, and Crosshair tells the other heroes about the Shadow Clones. The active Shadow Clone reports on Omega, and the discreetly planted detonators are set off. The Imperial Strike Recovery Team is inbound, and we see that Clone Commander Wolf is leading this strike force. He reminds his troops that their orders are to retrieve the target alive, thus ending the episode.
Okay, so I have a bit more to say on this on the previous two episodes. First off, it's interesting seeing Chuchi and Singh interacting, mostly out of the fact that in TCW, as I've said many times before, that show was very much a Republic good, Separatist bad, with like maybe kind of sort of heroes on both sides, villains everywhere, occasionally, but not really. So it was nice getting to see two senators from these opposing sides interacting in this way. Something that we never really got in TCW outside of like one episode. Now, in regards to these assassin troopers, the worry I had when this became a thing was, and many people also had this fear, did this potentially mean that this is how they would bring back tech? The fact that we have our main assassin trooper masked all the time, that gave me a worry. But cool idea, especially when we see the context as to who these guys are. Clones who are just completely stripped their identities. Like, that is a really interesting idea. Really makes you wonder, though, why didn't they just, I mean, the Kevin Owens do that from the start? It's like, but fine, sure, whatever. It's interesting seeing Teth again, because I believe we haven't seen that since the TCW movie. So, that was pretty nostalgic for me. And, it has significance, so that's cool.
The planet that Rex and company were on was Teth, with their base.
Yeah,
I honestly didn't think it was.
that might even be the same temple they went to in the movie, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
I wouldn't be surprised if it is, but yeah, so that's Teth. So, nice connection there. I like the fact that we have a clone calling out Crosshairs for the shit he did.
Oh yeah, that was Hauser.
Yeah, Hauser. It's an obvious way to go, but again, Crosshairs did do terrible fucking shit, and it's always nice when a guy who's made those kinds of mistakes has those mistakes thrown back in his face. It helps reinforce that he has, in fact, changed and grown past that. But you got people who've been wronged by him and are pissed off about the fact that he's able to just do shit out and about. And plus, it just makes sense that, you know, guys like Hauser wouldn't trust him initially.
I mean, obviously, there's any number of things that Crosshair could have done, but the main thing we're talking about here is killing off clone brethren.
Yeah, yeah, and these guys are kind of picky on that. We have a few TCW episodes about how if a clone either kills or leads to the deaths of other clones, they are not happy about that. And got another TCW pull with Wolf. Admittedly, I never thought much of that character in TCW. I mean, Dave Filoni likes wolves, and it is a wolf motif. But still, he's notable enough that it's cool to see him again.
I really enjoyed this episode. I enjoyed, even though it was very brief, seeing the two senators put their differences aside. Seeing Rex and Hauser again was great, along with, of course, their fellow clone comrades. Getting more insight into the Shadow Troopers is very interesting, and finally getting to see Wolf. I mean, Henson, you predicted this long ago. I think it was roundabout episode 7 and 8 of season 2 time. Or it may have been even sooner than that. It may have been Devil's Deal, one of the season 1 episodes, where you first theorized that Gregor and Wolf would appear. And here we are now, 2/5 of the way into season 3, and we're finally seeing Wolf for the first time in this show.
I believe that was in relation to, what we get in Rebels with Rex, Gregor, and Wolf together. My thought process being that surely in Bad Batch we would see what leads to that point, but, well, we'll see later on that. No. But still, the trio's all here, so we'll see what happens.
Indeed. Shall we wrap this up?
Yes. So,
Okay.
yes, overall, a solid batch of episodes. even though I didn't have much to say on 4 and 5, they were good to keep moving the story forward. There, so far, in my opinion, there hasn't been much in the way of filler. You could argue that some of the events in these episodes were meant to kind of like fill time fighting a snow worm. But given all the character work that's being done, that like things are happening in these episodes to push things forward, even if it's not like large scale things, until we get to episode 6 here, where we get a whole new slew of stuff with the Shadow Troopers. So, as I've said before, the season is going strong so far, and I would say the momentum is going to carry.
In conclusion, a great trio of episodes. You had maybe one in particular that had a bit more going on out of the three, but overall, very solid episodes. And we will follow this up with the next trio of episodes, episodes 7, 8, and 9. This is Jedi Knight Luke signing off, and may the Force be with you.
Sayonara.